The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good morning and welcome to Guardian Radio AM. Today is Thursday, June 20th. It's a little after 11 o'clock in the morning. And once again, this is C.A. Newry and I shall be your host for the day as we discover some things. We're going to discover some things because we have Antiquities, Monuments, is AMMC. So it's Antiquities, Monuments, Museums, Corporation. You know how to get all that in, right? Because we actually have the deputy chairman in studio with us. And I'm kind of... See, he's correcting me already. So he's not the deputy chairman, but he's the deputy director. And I'm going to have some interesting conversation with him today because I plan to challenge him. I'm planning to challenge him on what exactly is the AMMC is doing in that Fort Charlotte area. But in the meantime, we have the Williamson sisters in. No, I'm going to correct it. Miller.
You can say Williamson sisters, but I'm Smith.
Okay, just get that mic corrected so I make sure everyone can hear it. Go ahead again, Ms. Smith.
I am Dejanira Smith.
Yes. And she's here speaking about a big conference that is happening this Saturday.
This Saturday.
What's the name of the conference? Go ahead.
We're having, it's the Metamorphosis community, and we facilitate and deal with helping women that has been divorced, separated, but we're not limited to those women. And just to provide a safe community for those women. And so we're having our second annual conference. Last year we had, and we're doing it again a second time. And the name of the conference is The Unveiling, Finding Your Identity in Christ. And, you know, that's a question many people have challenges with, finding or want to know who I am. And a lot of people, they think their identity is in their name titles and in the type of relationships they have. But that is not truly where your identity is found. Your identity is truly found in Christ Jesus. And so this conference, we are going to be facilitating this conference to help bring, not only help, but to motivate women to really know who they are in Christ Jesus. A lot of us, we are saved, but we still don't know what we are in Jesus, what we have in Jesus, who we are in Him. All right? And so this is what the conference is all about. And we have 4 panelists. We're going to have a panel discussion about it. And so we have 4 panelists that's going to be there. Our facilitator for that panel is Karel Pinder. I don't know if you know Kamel. She is into the movies and the theater, and so she's doing an awesome work in that field. We also have the Queen of Empowerment, Melissa Hall. She is one of the panelists. We have Pastor Sharnette Kelly. We also have on our panelist Camille Donkinson, Dr. Camille Donkinson, and we have a young lady who is only 19 years old, and she's going to be a part of our panelists, Kaylee Dixon. And when I tell you she's on fire for God, she's on fire for God. And so we are going, it's going to be a rounded event. Yes.
That's great.
I just got to say something.
So this is happening this Saturday?
This is happening on Saturday, yes.
And where?
This is going to be held at the Zion South Beach Baptist Church.
Okay, I know where Zion South Beach Baptist Church.
Zion
okay,
South
and what
Beach.
time?
We're going to start, registration is going to start at 9 a.m. and the conference is basically going to start at 10. And so you don't want to miss it. We have registration at $10. That's just a little donation. That's not even what you're going to get. Okay, so you can register at the door. For those of you who are coming here from Bahamas, you can register at the door. And those of you, you can also register online at Metamorphosis Eventbrite. We also have a link there where you can register as well. But it's going to be, listen, when I tell you prizes and surprises, prizes and surprises.
So this is a one-day event?
A one-day event. And so it's not all day, but it's half of the day.
Okay, so you said registration starts at
9 a.m.
So 9 until when?
9 until 2. And so we have refresh. Well, and like I said, it's going to be an awesome, awesome time with us coming together as women and just sharing our stories.
You mentioned divorce earlier.
Yes.
Right? So is this a conference about survival divorce or what after divorce? What is it exactly about?
Well, the community really is about helping and providing a safe community for women that's been divorced. And that is something that God has indeed called me to. And so I minister to women that's been divorced in survival mode, because when you go through a divorce, it's like death. It's like the other partner possibly, it's like death. And not only death, but you go through so much different types of emotions. And me, myself, one coming from a divorce, I know firsthand the different emotions that you go through. And for me, it was many years ago. I did not have the support of talking or helping, having someone to help me work through all of the different emotions that I went through. And I don't want nobody to have to do it alone. And so
this is like a support group?
It's a support group.
And you make it biblically based?
Yes, it is biblically based. And so what we do is go through your period of divorce, but by and through the Word of God. And so you're not only going to be getting what I would say just a motivation talk, but we are going to help you do a life change, a transformation. And so just as the conference say, finding your identity in Christ, we're going to help you come from that old, unveil that old you and bring on that new you.
Do I have to be born again, saved, to come to this conference? Because it sounds Christian based.
No.
And I want to know, how do me, a secular woman, I'm not a secular woman, right? How can a secular woman come to this Christian based event?
Listen, God say, come as you are. The Bible tells us to come as you are. Right? And anyone is invited. And that's why I said not limited to. At the first, I said not limited to. So we want every woman possible. We are also going to have a session for teenage girls. So if you are a woman and you have a teenage daughter and you need her to be there, I say let her be there. We have, like I said, the lady, the 19-year-old, powerful, life change. When I say transformation, on fire for God.
I was just going to say, I really appreciate the sort of Bible-based approach, because I ain't been married, but I heard about it, and I heard that losing a spouse, is like losing your core. And sometimes people really, as they begin to reform themselves and figure out who they are now that they are no longer betrothed. Because in the process of marriage, like if you had a biblical marriage, right, that combining of souls, to rend that apart now can be extremely traumatic for people, and so traumatic that it's not just a friend to lean on to help, but you need a real structure to plug yourself back into until you figure out who you are again.
Most definitely. You really need that strong support base, because like I said, you in most cases you find yourself, and this is not only for women, but because it's a woman group, I have to deal with women, but men go through the same process as well. But you really need that strong support base, because as I was saying, when you go through a divorce, start life all over again. And if you're a woman depending on a husband financially, that means you have to figure out a financial status. How are you going to get by financially? Because I know for me, I was a stay-at-home wife. And so I didn't work. So when I had my divorce, I had to figure out life. I had to start all over again. It's like when your house burned down, you know, the pain that happens, the trauma that happens, and then you have to rebuild all of that. So you go through all those stages of trauma, pain, hurt, and then the rebuilding process. And so we help biblically how to get through that trauma, and also try to help you to build financially how you can really stand on your own as a single.
Miss Newry, man, this is an excellent question. I mean, not for the divorce part, right? But yeah, it's absolutely important. And small things can be triggering and traumatic. Like Mr. Newry, if God forbid, can relieve you, you will let her keep the Newry, right?
She can keep whatever she would, and the kids, and the house, whatever she wants. I just would want to be free.
But imagine that you've had this name now for so long, and your kids have this name, and you get divorced, and then somebody may say something to you like, I'm going to need you to change your name. I'm going to need you to give me my name back. And you got to look at that person and say, oh, no, I have become this person. I can't just give you this back. And and providing spaces for people to deal with something that seems so simple but could be so heavy.
Yes.
Okay. So before we transition, right, we need to know contacts. We
Yes.
need to know contacts on how to register in terms of if you have a website, a Facebook page, a phone number. And so let's do that. Let's go to contacts.
Okay, so if you want to register, like I said, first top, you can come to the door. You can register at the door. It's $10 registration. If you want to do it before, you can go online, Eventbrite, Calvary. Once you put in Calvary Chapel, Acts of the Apostles, Metamorphosis is going to come up. You can register there. You can, if you need more information, you can contact me at 809-2262. 809-2262. If you want to send me an email, you can send me an email at makingpivotmoves@gmail.com.
Okay. Give me that phone number again.
809-2262.
And say your full name again so everyone who's listening.
Dejanera Smith.
Yes. And so I just want to make sure people tend to register. But in terms of topics that is going to be covered, right? I'm always thinking like surviving divorce as a young child. Aaron indicated that. Will you be covering how to deal with children?
Now, our topics, when we're dealing with the divorce portion of the community, that goes, we have our study that we have a monthly meeting where we meet via Zoom every month and we deal with different topics.
Okay.
And so we invite persons to those meetings. So if you want to be a part of those meetings and those sessions, you can call me or email that information that I sent. My telephone number, you can call me. I can add you to that mailing list so that you will be a part of those meetings. But yes, of course, children is left. A lot of people don't think about the children in divorce, but the children are traumatized. I know for me, when I separated, I have 5 children, and all of them, they were differently. And so children are affected, whether we want to believe it or not. They are affected sometimes more than we are.
Of course.
As
Because they have no control. I think, finding age-appropriate ways to be honest and engage and prepare kids about what's about to happen is really important. Otherwise, they develop trauma, or the trauma develops psychological and emotional issues. It can then play out and manifest.
They spiral.
Yeah.
So, producer, I see we have a caller. Let's take this caller, and we're speaking to Dejanera Smith. And then we'll start our break right after that and transition to the next part of the show. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
This is Diana. Aaron, I'm calling to thank you for everything you've done, the support for the Accordion Project. For your guest, the youth is a serious concern in this country. And 2 things come to mind that they are confronted with. One of them is the transition from childhood to adulthood that all traditional societies took as a responsibility to help them make that leap. And I believe we just let them face a very difficult time with very little help.
Support, yeah.
And the other thing is the vulnerability of our youth to being by people that get them hooked on drugs, age 12, age 13, where they could be vulnerable because of the home situation you're describing, because of the environment, and it's not a question of coming from a wealthy or a poor neighborhood. It's just something that young people are being confronted with. And wanted to know if you also address those kinds of issues, especially since there are young people who really need guidance and support.
In the broader programming of the group?
Well, I have not provided anything in terms of that. However, but I can speak from my own personal testimony. I have a daughter who is 19, and she, smart, intelligent young lady, but she found herself in the world doing things that, was just not, her character. And for me as a parent, and as a Christian parent, I honestly had to stand on my principle of the Word of God. And I did that. And a lot of person might question and eyes might rise right now, but I had to give her back over to the world. I had to give her to the devil in order to receive her back. But I never stopped praying for her. I never stopped talking to her, but I could not allow her to, I would say, do things that be unruly in my home. And so I had to tell her, no, you cannot live in my home if you're not going to obey my rules. And I had to let her go. However, and I thank God for prayers. And so I say, parents, don't ever give up on your children. And see, we have to hold a standard. If you say that you are saved and you're serving God, you have to hold forth to the Word of God and not compromise in any way. See, prayers changes things, and you have to, like I said, trust God and pray, because it changes things. And today, my daughter is now saved, and she is she's the young lady that I spoke about that is going to be on the panel. She is saved, full with the Holy Ghost, and serving God at 19 years old.
That's wonderful. As we end the segment, I just want to say for people who are going to attend the segment or become a part of the broader conversation, that sometimes it's the traumas that young people experience unprocessed, right, that lead to divorce later in life. And so this is also an important part of the discussion. Unfortunately, we're all out of time. Give us the number to call again.
809-2262, or you can email me at makingpivotmoves, MAKING PIVOTMOVES @gmail.com.
Absolutely. I'll be back on.
Yeah, we're going to take this break, and we'll continue our conversation with Deputy Director Mr. Cornish, and about the AMMC and what they're doing in that Fort Fincastle area. We'll be right back.
Reliable and impactful printing services, look no further. Let Printmasters bring your masterpiece to life. We stand by our quality products that is second to none. Our affordable pricing and friendly, efficient staff makes Printmasters the ultimate choice for all your printing needs. We can deliver any type of printing services, from banners to booklets to business cards. You name it, we can print it.
Let Printmasters bring your masterpiece to life.
Located in the Nassau Guardian Building, telephone 302-2361.
The best athletes in the Bahamas will be on display at the B3A's Kids Athletics Invitational Junior and Senior National Championships, June 26 to 28 at the original Thomas A. Robinson Track and Field Stadium. Stephen Gardner, Devin Charlton, Shawnee Miller-Wevo, and so many more. The juniors are vying for the opportunity to represent the Bahamas at the World Under-20 Championships, and the seniors are gunning to qualify for the Paris Olympic Games, which are fast approaching, and our athletes are looking to get on the road to Paris. The meet gets underway at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, June 26th, and Thursday, June 27th, and at 5 p.m. on Friday, June 28th. Gates open at 3 p.m. daily, and tickets at the original Thomas A. Robinson Track and Field Stadium. The B3A's Kids Athletics Invitational Junior and Senior National Championships, June 26 to 28 at the original Thomas A. Robinson Stadium. You don't want to miss this one.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
And welcome back to Guardian Radio AM. Again, this is C.A. Newry, and of course, we have finally Don Cornish, right? And he corrected me, said, no, he's not the deputy chairman. He is the deputy director of the AMMC. And let me see if I get the right name. So A is for Antiquities, Monuments, Museum Corporation. Yes. Now, I'm not even going to go on our deputy director and the deputy chairman, but I want to know, what is AMMC? Right? What is that role and responsibilities? And I also want to know, as the director, deputy director, that type of position, what is it that you do?
Yes, the Antiquities Monuments Museum Corporation, really the protector of our patrimony as a country, our heritage, both the built tradition, the historical position of the country. And it was established by an act of parliament in 1998. And came into force in 1999. So we're celebrating actually our 25th year of existence. And it's exciting for us that we do have a corporation, which is Corporate Soleil, that has the capacity to really position the country's history in a way that it can be beneficial for generations to come, to protect it, to preserve it, et cetera. So my role is, of course, we have a board, and the board is chaired by a group of persons who are appointed by the government to assist us in the operation of the corporation. The corporation is led administratively by a director, and I'm the deputy director. And we are responsible for the day-to-day operation, ensuring that we carry out the mandate of the Antiquities Act. And of course, that includes not just on the surface, but also below the waters of the Bahamas.
You mentioned the word Antiquities Act, right? And few Bahamians may appreciate the word antiquities, right? But can you give us a brief synopsis of what is
history? I guess the place where we find ourselves in the world. When we were founded as a country, the historical markers, we like to say, the moments in our life as a country that are significant. And that relates principally to anything over 50 years old. So some of us probably qualify. Just kidding. But very seriously, antiquities are any items over 50 years old that are of some significance.
Now, is that specific to the Bahamas? Because normally we think that to be called an antique, it has to be 100 years or older.
But that's what the Act speaks to.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why it was qualified to 50, but I think it relates principally to the fact that there are some buildings in particular that will fall into that category, and to really protect them, and preserve them, there may be a need to intervene. There's some challenges, obviously, with some of the things that have happened over the years with urbanization, persons moving in a particular direction in terms of their thinking about planning or the lack thereof. And so what it does is it gives us, and to remind people how important it is to preserve that which we have inherited.
Okay, so we understand what antiquities is, right? Now, the word monument, right? And you mentioned museums. I assume monuments is various statues and things like that?
Yeah, well, monuments are classifications based on moments of history that we want to preserve and we want to commemorate. And so there could be basically mounds of different types. There's a way in which we actually celebrate the life of persons and events. And the monument, once it's designated, would be basically defined based on the, like, for example, if we had a cenotaph or we had a, what do you call it?
Oh, no.
Right. Or any type of structure that we are able to position in a way that commemorates the historical marker that we want to commemorate.
All right. In the Caribbean context, considering we can define our terms our own ways, historic trees like 100, 200-year-old silk cotton trees, can those be classified as monuments?
Well, they come under the Conservation Act.
I know, but I want double up the protection.
Well, I think when you locations may be considered historical,
right?
If that's what you're referring
to,
right?
Like imagine,
and so a tree may be symbolic of a moment in our history as well. But of course, when I think legally about how it interacts and interfaces with us, we're thinking more in terms of who protects that, because it would be outside of our jurisdiction in terms of the legislation. Because of course, there's an Environmental Act that has come into force, as well as the fact that we have the Landscape Act, which speaks to old growth trees, trees that have historical significance, quarry mining and sand mining and those kinds of things. So there's some classifications and some micro statutes that come into play, because there's a lot of interaction in terms of the historical space. So it may be that there may be that fig tree,
right?
Or that rubber tree that has significance in Grantstown or someplace else that somebody wants to protect, right? Because it may have been where they used to have a particular ceremony at one time or the other. So we mark that moment as much as we think about what you're talking about, the symbolic nature of the location with a tree, a wall, or some other edifice that's there that has historical value for us. So it's like a catch-22 kind of situation. Even though the tree itself would be considered a monument in our hearts and our spirits, we see it as a part of that whole experience.
Mr. Newry, you could imagine if we could take the wall opposite Miriam Roker's house, where the boy Bagadu wrote the song, Don't Mind Livingston Josiah's the JP, right? We could turn that in, we could have it recognized as a monument. Just because of the particulars of our history, some of the important things didn't take place in buildings.
Right.
It didn't take place in formal government or recognized structures. The life came to be in that moment.
And we have a way of speaking to that. So what we've done is signage does that, native signage, whether it's a plaque, whether it's an actual physical sign, whether it's a storyboard that tells the story of that moment. And so putting a quality experience into a packaged sign somewhere. We have standard templates that we utilize for that purpose. Now, it's an expensive undertaking. We've actually designed a program already for a national signage program. But the issue is, of course, cost. And so we're trying to do it in phases. We're looking at Fort Charlotte. There's a micro program for that, as well as Fort Fincastle. Some of the places where we have a particular focus because of the impact that they have on the industry of tourism and the general industry of visitation to historical sites. And so we want to be able to bring people into those sites in a way that they're properly informed. Because we have lots of urban legends. People make things up and they sound good, and they become a part of the whole experience. And you could talk about, some people talk about caverns under the ground that lead from one place to the other in the city of Nassau that were used for escape for the governor, and all kinds of stuff is being said.
We can get there. But I want to ask about the last, because we did A, we did M, and we did M. M for museums. All museums in the Bahamas is registered under the AMMC?
No.
Okay.
We have our museums. The museums that we're responsible for would be the Pompey Museum, Balcony House. We also have the museum at Long Island, and it's actually being renovated as I speak. And we have a museum planned for Grand Bahama that should come on stream by the fall. There are a lot of private museums in the Bahamas. They don't all come under our direct control or management.
There's a new museum, private museum, on Market Street, just below the St. Agnes, on the western side, on the eastern side of St. Agnes.
Lewis Street.
Yeah, the white plaza right there. Gregory Ambrister is the owner and operator. Yeah, nice new little museum.
Yeah, we would love to work with persons who do have private museums so that we can assist them. And
How would they do that in terms of registering?
but they basically would have come in and speak with us. That would be the beginning. And then
Do
we
they get financial support? How does that operate? No, I just want to know the whole process. I want to register. I want to know what happens.
Well, I can't give them the whole process. We'll have to make a determination on what they're doing first. And then we can do an assessment, and then we can direct them accordingly with our technical team, whether it's archaeologists or curators or persons on our team who can assist them with trying to put together whatever product they're trying to promote.
Okay.
And making sure that it meets the requirements under the law, as well as just historical tests, to make sure that the information has been properly researched before we align ourselves with.
You thought history and conservation is so interesting?
Well, I like history.
I mean, I like it too, but you think the other people didn't know?
So, back to the reason that I invited you here, I want to talk about the number of activities the AMMC is doing in that Fort Hill area, from the 66 steps to now the water tower. Some big announcements, some big money spending, some partnership with tourism. Your board is actively doing stuff, renovating stuff, right? Recently, you've renovated, rebranded the 66 steps, the Queen's Staircase. You've corrected the narrative. You mentioned narrative, have urban legend narrative, and then the actual narrative. There's an actual narrative of the 66 step there now, right? Which a number of people say, man, I know about that. I know about this one I've been growing up with for a while, right? I want to know, is there a plan for that 66 step area? When I mean 66 step, the top of it, then come back downstairs to that area. What is the AMMC's plan?
Well, we have looked at the whole body of work, including McCullough Corner. There's been a focus on that site. There are actually 3 sites, 66 steps, and then, of course, the fort itself, with the water tower being a central feature, and further afield into McCullough Corner itself. And I mentioned McCullough Corner because when we did our signage program, we started to develop it. We developed based on the fact that the fort is actually extended beyond the hill. And we see and we have a vision to interact and interface with the community a bit more, to provide opportunities for persons to do walking tours and persons to be able to access that area in order to benefit from the history, especially thinking about the number of Bahamians who were born or grew up in that area of significance, and also just the benefits and creating that ownership, because you can't have a community that close that does not understand and appreciate exactly what is on top of the hill. And it can't be an us and them kind of situation. So I think, even beyond, my time coming in, previous to my coming, there was an assessment done to determine how best we can interact with them. And also thinking about the fact that the assessments that have been done in the industry suggest that we're one of the, if not one of the most visited sites in the Caribbean, Fort Fincastle as a whole, for the cruise business, the cruise industry. The assessments are that less than 10% of persons on a cruise ship get a heritage tour in the Caribbean. And in the Bahamas, it's less than 1%. So we should be troubled and concerned about that. That's number one. Number two, we've determined that we're getting very little traffic in the fort itself for paying customers who actually come through our gates. And I won't discuss the numbers today, but from a revenue standpoint, as a corporation, we're not seeing very much benefit. So the board and the leadership at Antiquities have been talking about ways in which we can enhance it. We got the partnership of the Nassau Paradise Island Promotion Board, and they did what they had to do to bring the Queen's Staircase back and the waterfall. And then we got the government to intervene with the water tower. It's an ongoing process. There's also a village experience that's supposed to come with that redevelopment.
Explain this village experience. Get some little details on that.
Yeah, just going to get to that. The village experience was separated from the water tower. The design plan is not yet completed, but just below where the vendors are now, the concrete pavements are between the parking lot of PMH and us, is where vending is supposed to be placed. A native type experience that's, symbolic of the village experience you would get in a Bahamian village 100 years ago. And so the whole concept is to create an integrated, interactive space that takes that clutter out of the parking lot, where people can come and they can actually go and have an experience within the landscape without changing the geographical lay or the topography of it too much, and really allowing people to have almost like a single shop kind of experience where they're walking in and interacting, and it's more of a interactive experience.
Is AMMC going to partner with the Tourism Development Center for resources, but more importantly, training opportunities so that vendors understand what is expected from them in this village-style space? It's not just selling authentically Bahamian things, but it's also recreating an experience from 100 years ago.
Well, we're not quite there yet, but we've started some partnership with the Tourism Development Corporation, TDC, and we've started actually with walking tours downtown and music at the Fort Charlotte in particular. And there's some other ideas that we've been talking, creating a heritage trail. And a heritage trail meaning that if you can identify, say, 20 experiences in downtown that are worth going for, whether it's to build tradition with historical buildings or historical sites or monuments, then you should be able to take someone to them. There should be an interpretive piece of literature where people are trained and they know that they're going to start on Woods Rogers Walk, WALK. So they walk, Woods Rogers is probably going to meet them somewhere, and they go to Pompey Square and they meet Pompey in costume, and they go into the square and have an experience, and they go into the museum.
And then you ain't gonna meet Pompey and Woods Rogers at the same at the same time, because Pompey know better than that.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And then you go from there to, say, a balcony house, and you can go maybe to Christchurch Cathedral, and you can move through the entire experience. You go to Parliament Square. You go to
let me interview right now, because I can be a slave child, right, or I will be an newly emancipated person, and I taking you on the walk. I just have to walk every day. This is what I have to do, and this is who I is meet. Yeah.
The phone's just lit up. A lot of people are interested in what you're saying, and I will say, timeline. This 20 years from now. This 5 years. This 5 years from now. I hear you.
What we've been doing is we've been right-sizing our own expectations. So you'll notice that, as I said, the water tower has started. The water tower timeline is February of next year.
February next year it should be open, or February next year it should be started?
It should be open. Okay. Open. It should be all the work should be completed.
And when I say open, what is it? It's going to be. I'm not sure.
It's going to continue to be what it always was. It's an attraction. Persons are going to be able to take the elevator up to the top floor. They'll be able to walk to the top floor. We're going to look at ways in which we can maximize, and monetize the experience with persons paying an entry fee, and also getting, access to gifts and food and all the retailing that not necessarily would have to come with that. So we're looking at ways in which we can do that. In terms of the entire Fort Fincastle experience, we're looking at monetizing the experience in a way that the guests who come out of those buses in the air condition and they interact. Because what is happening now is we're drive-by. Yeah. We have persons coming and they're driving through in the air condition and they're leaving. So when I talk those numbers do not translate into opportunities for us to be able to maintain that area. So taxpayers carry the brunt of that because we're not yet able to get those persons to physically come into that space. So we've done some things. We've actually gone after the whole concept of direct sale of our product. We're not doing it. And as a corporation, the whole idea was that we'd be in that position. So we're talking about ways in which we can convince the board to work with us and as they are, to really move out of the space where we are as the recipient of someone else's planning, to be the planners ourselves, to go and approach the cruise business and say to them, look, we're in this space too, and we want to be a real player. We don't just want $2. We want the $2 million a year revenue that's likely to happen if we get more people coming into the experience itself and paying a fee as a guest to our shores, rather than someone else benefiting from that, making maybe $80 or $90 per person and the person just gets, the beauty
Peripheral
shot,
tour, yeah.
the beauty shot,
Yeah.
with an empty experience.
Okay, let's go to the callers. I have a number of callers. The line is lit up, so let's do that. Go ahead, first call.
CA,
Go ahead, listen.
Aaron, and your guest.
Morning.
Good morning.
I live 1.5 minutes away from the water tower. So this is a very interesting show for me.
Mm-hmm.
However, to your guest, I have a big concern when it comes to the buses and the taxi cabs and the scooters that they block the roads, they traverse around the fort area, and I think that is an accident waiting to happen. Can a proper parking area be identified, even if the government has to buy the land for proper parking, and make the fort area strictly pedestrian? Because I walk that all the time, and sometimes it's a close call with tourists and those buses trying to get out of each one another way. I don't think that should be. Second of all, there is a house, the only really dilapidated house on Prison Lane, just about 50 feet to the T-junction, from the T-junction on the left, heading east. That is horrible, in horrible condition, all kind of old cars and stuff, and that's the first thing the tourists see, trying to come there. What can we do about that? And my last question is, when you all fix about this, is my property value going up?
Don't worry about the property value going up, but worry about the property tax going up.
But you hit some very important touch points. We do have some property. It's not immediately at the fort area. It's about how best we can do that. As you know, change, people talk about change until it affects them personally. Mm-hmm. And so when we begin to look at whether it's a property acquisition move or any other kind of move, investing of property that may be suited to this kind of thing, obviously there's going to be some sensitivity. The other thing is that, with acquisition of property, people want to have what they believe is a fair market value that may be above and beyond the ability of the corporation, or maybe be beyond the reach of, the agency trying to acquire it. But I take what you're saying. We've looked at those things. We have some time. We're going to continue to talk to the community. There are going to be stakeholder meetings. We're not going to just impose our will on the community. We want to go and talk to persons not just there, because we've observed that. In fact, I've started having conversations with property owners, like the person you talked about, the house that you mentioned. And we know that they're willing to have a discussion about what can be done to improve the area. We've spoken also to the Johnson family that owned the eatery right across the street from that. In fact, no longer than last week. And so there are a lot of discussions taking place, because this is all going to be a community effort. But when we get beyond the fort, the difficulty is going to be, we're going to have to find a way to bridge that whole divide, getting people in and out of the area in general, because it's a built community. It's not a case where you have, vacant lots that are smooth and level, and so there's a whole lot of stuff we're going to have to do, the dynamics of which are going to require us to think out of the box.
Okay, we have some more calls. And you want to ask a question now?
No, I can just put it on the table. So we need to have a series of public discussions
Yes.
on gentrification.
Yes.
And what it means when we gentrify our own spaces.
Yes.
Okay, let's go to the next caller. That's a good point, Aaron. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me? Call going once. Call going twice. Let's move on to the next one. Go ahead, call. Can you hear me? I know the phone's lit up. We didn't get no phone calls. Go ahead, I can hear you.
Hi, CA. Hi, Aaron. And to your guest from AMMC, I'm very, very happy. I'm a proud Bahamian to hear this kind of discourse being had on the radio, where the nation who is listening can participate. Let me congratulate the work thus far that the AMMC is doing as far as the 66th step is concerned. I've watched, in fact, the election to put lighting in that area, and I'm very, very, very happy to see that some focus is being done in that area finally. The water tower is something that I've talked about, spoken to on numerous occasions on the radio, being that the water tower was one of those historical sites, as we can put it, from a little boy, I used to go up into the water tower to view Nassau, to look at the harbor and everything from that tower. And it's really sad to know that the tower has been closed for quite a long time, when we all knew that it was a revenue generator for the Treasury for a very long time. So I'm happy to see that discussion. But to your guest, here are some of the ideas I have listening to the conversation thus far. We've visited many of the other Caribbean countries, St. Thomas, St. Martin, so on and so forth. And one thing I've noticed is that there are similarities between what we do here in the Bahamas and them, the T-shirts and the trinkets and all that stuff, all fine and good.
Right.
But the uniqueness of this country, we are not really getting maximum bang from what terms of infrastructure. We're not really getting true revenue from these areas. Let me give you a classic example here. Fort Finn Castle, for instance. It has the water tower there. Yes, going up and down the water tower is revenue generating. But if we get the water tower reestablished and open, and if we could get that whole environment to replicate what it once was, I believe that when the tours come along and we open those gates, perhaps we can have a point during the daytime where there is, and this is now where some other persons will come a part of this conversation, those who make movies, those who do lighting, and so on and so forth, such as when you go to Disney. When you go through, you got lighting all through the pathways. You have video showing the different aspects of the history of the water tower and the history of how the pirates probably and those who guarded the fort, what they would have been doing up there. From that historical standpoint, I believe that we can marry cinematography and we can marry the fort presently in its state to be a revenue driver. But the key point is now in the evening time, because Nassau and New Providence is dead, we could actually get the performing, we could reenact some of the things that we believe through history that the fort, where the fort and the water tower played a very significant role in the protection of our harbor in this country. I believe we can bring everybody together and make this an employment generator where we get our Bahamian people to work. We can get revenues running, but it takes open-minded persons who are really serious about this to get this done.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I agree with you with a portion of what you said. I'm not certain we have the ability to do it all at once. I mean, that's a very comprehensive program, but we do have at the moment a reenactment program. And the reenactment of the West India Regiment, the Redcoats, takes place at the fort on a regular basis as it is. We're trying to grow that regiment to 100. That's the goal within the next 12 months. We do have a summer program that we've gotten funding for where we will bring in the Rangers who will assist us, at least temporarily, in getting some of the shows in while the season is on. And we're hopeful that we will get full-time persons in the regiment going forward. It's going to be a major commitment of funding and resources. So obviously, we're taking bite sizes to get there.
It's only 30 seconds now, and so we could run through this thing. Go ahead, first caller. First caller going once. First caller going twice. Going the second caller. Go ahead.
Hello. Good day, Mr. Newry. Good day, and to your guest.
Good day.
Yeah. They speaking about dilapidated building and properties available in the area of the fort. Right. Remember last year I told you how the government had purchased the property from me next to the National Art Gallery when they wanted to put it up there on West Street.
Okay.
You heard?
Yes, I remember. Go ahead.
Yeah, eminence domain. Because any property you're saying with dilapidated or what the government wants to use for government purposes such as this, they can acquire it.
Yes, sir. You talking about the Fort Hill? You talking about the government acquiring all kind of Fort Hill people property? And I went to inherit Fort Hill people property? What a beautiful tension that we have, though.
Good. We have 3 minutes, right? Can regular citizens who live in the Fort Hill partner with AMMC in terms of ideas? We see that everyone who calling them have ideas on what the fort should be, look like. They want to be involved. I know some people want to open up their own chicken shack or their own lemonade stand in the Fort Phil McCullough Corner area. will the AMC help facilitate that, at least entertain the conversation?
Definitely. Let me just share, because as I said to you, we're going into McCullough Corner. Even though I support the other group, not the one that's in McCullough Corner, the one that starts with V. Yeah. Anyway, but very seriously, what we've looked at is the opportunities that we have in McCullough Corner, with especially the Saxon Shacks and all of that, because Junkanoo represents a major part of our history. The communities I talked about also were home to many significant Bahamians from various walks of life, including a former prime minister, etc. So we've looked at that. We continue to talk about that. We're going to come and we're going to have those conversations very soon, where we're going to actually engage the community, walk about as we did already. We're going to come back and we're going to listen, and we're going to look at ways in which we can make this happen within the next 12 months. And even if it's only done in phases at the beginning, to identify. I drive through there all the time because I want to see the condition. It's fairly well kept, with one or two exceptions. And so there's not a whole lot that needs to be done to clean up the side streets and all of that, freshen up buildings, as the case may be. But we can achieve that with the partnership of the community.
Mr. Newry, look how we can become billionaires running Airbnb in Fort Hill area, specifically during Junkanoo time, so people could wake up and go to sleep with the sound of the shack.
And they can learn how to beat a tom-tom drum outside their museum while tours are going on around it.
Absolutely.
I'd like to thank you. That's that Assistant Director of the AMMC.
Deputy Director.
I've been messing up this title.
I's an assistant.
Yeah.
He's a deputy.
Okay. I just want to read this announcement before I go. This is a public announcement from the Bahamas Power and Light Company, dated June 19. Bahamas Power and Light BPL advises the public of a temporary road closure to facilitate underground work for system upgrades in the eastern New Providence area. The affected area will be from the intersection of Eastern Road to Shirley Street and to the Newgate Road. Closures will occur on Friday, June 21st, 2024 from 4 p.m. to 12 a.m., Saturday, June 22nd from 8 a.m. to 12 a.m., and on Sunday, June 23rd, from 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. Motorists are advised to use alternative routes during this time. BPL apologizes for any inconvenience. And for more information, guys, visit the website, which is www.bplco.com.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.